Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. The India-China question will come across time and again. There are three factors to it. One, winters are pretty much over, and a lot of people would say campaign season is around the corner. Two, Xi Jinping is supposed to be visiting India, and if you know China well, you know that they're going to be talking to us not just face, but they will be also doing some strategic messaging. It's important for us to understand what is happening in this game. And for that, we have Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia after a long time on Dev Talk. Sir, hello and welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Adi. Always honor and a pleasure to be on your platform. It's been some time. I've been a little busy, and so have you been. But great to be back on your platform. Thank you very much.
Absolutely amazing to have you here, sir. We've discussed the India-China talks, as a matter of fact, from this disengagement to each one of the co-commanders talks between us, and we've actually taken through this India-China journey by trying to understand with regards to what's happening between these two countries. So now, overall, just to begin this conversation, where do you see us standing today? Is there an improvement? Is there, a reduction in terms of tensions? Is there any sort of disengagement on the book? Is there something that you see on the horizon coming between India and China?
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. I think it's a stalemate sort of a thing. If you look post Galwan, I will say post Galwan, there has actually been no escalation. We have resolved Pangong So, we resolved a few friction points. We had occupied Kailash Ridge, which is an excellent strategic signal as a QPQ option. We, of course, withdrew from there. So there have been 17 rounds of talks already between the core commanders, WMCC's meeting, the special SR level talks have been there, the foreign ministers are met. So the defense ministers are met. So if you see, there's been talk at the diplomatic level, there's been talk at the military level, there's talk at the political level. Of course, that Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping, of course, had a handshake towards during the SCO. During the G20 in Indonesia, right? So it's not that there has not been talk, but yes, issues remain and major issues remain. And the major issue that remains actually is the forward deployment of the PLA along the line of action control. There are certain areas where the PLA has had foreign forward deployment, and that we are trying to resolve. The two sides are trying to resolve through dialogue. But it is not moving, and things are getting impatient, though we should not get impatient. The fact remains that on 9th of December, Yangtze happened, but Yangtze has been happening over the years. It's a very, very set sort of a thing. Yangtze, the PLA troops come there, they want to take some photographs, they want to cross the breast wall, and then they want to go back. And it's nothing new about it. As long as we do not have a common understanding line of action control, such things will happen. But I always look at the positive side of it. We have not gone beyond, pushing and shoving and a little fisticuffs here and there. There's been no firing whatsoever, including Galwan for that matter. So I see this as a positive because they're two large neighbors, two Asian giants, both doing very well. India, a risen power now. It's not a rising power; it's a risen power. It's a responsible power. It's a resurgent power. It's a resurgent India, and China again. China, I think, aiming to challenge the US for the global supremacy. China wants a bipolar world. India wants a multipolar world. America wants a unipolar world. So I think that is where the emerging world disorder, I would say, is basically looking at India and China for resolution. And it is, I think, incumbent on both China and India to resolve the issues and grow together. Because China and India complement each other in many ways, right? Let's not talk about, a communist country and democracy. Yeah, so what I was basically trying to say was that India and China have to understand each other and realize that we got to grow together, we got to complement each other. And this can only happen if China does resolve the LAC, right, the forward deployment LAC. China, it's military coercion which China has done. If China wants us to do something, China doesn't understand India at all. That's not the way to deal with India. Right? China still create problems politically, militarily, diplomatically, and get its way because China is using sharp power. Right? China employs sharp power, something which the world is still getting used to from soft power to hard power to smart power. China is gradually sharp power. That means simply put, either you're with us or you're against us, right? And we should understand that India was the only country which totally opposed the China dream of BRI, right? All other nations reluctantly or otherwise accepted it in totality, but we did not, rightly so, because the CPEC, which is central to the China dream of BRI, passes through Indian territory. So that's a fact. So China has to understand the bigger picture. China has to understand India and how to deal with India. And it's not a rollover. China just can't come and just sit down somewhere and say, okay, now this is our territory. It's not going to happen. It's not a pushover. So I think we have to understand each other and grow together.
That is interesting. So I guess that would be the least that would be desired from China as a responsible neighbor, if I may just put it very, very meekly. But I'd like to ask you, the political situation between the two countries, of course, remains very tensed up because there have been no talks in the political leadership of the two countries. There have been discussions between the ministerial level and senior ministerial level, but of course the two leaders who do have the power and that do have the standing and the conviction to kind of resolve this issue have not been in contact. What does that signify to you, sir? Is there a reluctance from both the sides, or is there a reluctance? I don't think there's a reluctance from the Indian side, but is there a reluctance from the Chinese side with regards to having a political interaction?
Yeah, I think you're right. There is a reluctance definitely from both sides. If you look at 2014 and beyond, right, 2013 March, Xi Jinping became the president, right, and now he's president for life. And both the leaders of the two great nations, India and China, met about 18 or 19 times from 2014 to 2020, right, including two very high-profile informal meetings at Wuhan and Mahabalipuram. There was great understanding, there was great chemistry, believed to be great chemistry with the two leaders. So things were going very, very well till the time that the line of actual control happened. And when that happened, I think what really happened was China did not expect. We were strategic. There was a strategic surprise. We were surprised. Let's not hide the fact that we were surprised by China's assertiveness and aggressiveness. But China was also surprised by the resolve which we demonstrated in a very measured manner by military deployment, right? By equitable and proportional deployment, by very restrained but response all the same, where we said no blinking, no brinkmanship. Now, China did not expect that. Now, China thinks it's a big country and can push its neighbors. It could push India, but I don't think it achieved that aim. It did not push India. Right. So that was one part of it. So today, politically, I think it's very difficult for the Prime Minister of India. It needs a lot of political capital, right? Prime Minister Modi is not a political equivalent, political cloud, but so much of political capital is required to go and deal with Xi Jinping and China. Political capital is, that sort of, I think, was India's elections are there in 2024, but state elections happen everywhere. Xi Jinping, on the other hand, also is answerable to his party. So he has just been through the last one recently, the 20th Congress, and they were asking, what have you achieved by doing what you did with this? What have you actually achieved? If you look at it, the Chinese not achieved anything. But by a forward deployment, what have they achieved? They have increased the cost on the PLA. Right? They have suffered casualties. Galwan, you can say they had 4 casualties or 3 casualties, but everyone knows that they suffered many more casualties. Right? Now, PLA is conscripts. These conscripts come for 2 years, 40%, 20% turn every year. No, conscripts will overlook their shoulders. When they go back to the society, go back to the people, they talk. So it is not that you may have you may control the media, you may control the internet, you may control the social media, but you can't control the people the way they are. So they go back and talk. Life is difficult, and the PLA soldiers are not used to difficulties. Indian soldiers survive in altitude, come back laughing and avail a little leave and go back after 3 months and be happy. There's a lot of difference between Indian soldiers. We used to altitude over the years. We had deployment along the LAC. In the northeast, we had 3 corps deployed there. In the northern theater, we have corps deployed in altitude. We are a altitude army. We are a mountain army. What are people who say? I don't agree with them that this is we are the army which has been deployed. We thrive in high altitude. The Chinese do not. That is why now they're trying to raise units of Tibetan soldiers. Okay, so I think China would have done a cause and effect analysis. Tibetan soldiers can also work two ways. Tibet is Tibet. So that is where I feel that both are reluctant because of political capital which they have to invest in talking to each other. Xi Jinping also doesn't have unlimited political capital. And neither does Mr. Modi. No one has. So China has carried a political warfare in India basically. It's part of political warfare, which I call. LSE is a tool basically. Right, it's political warfare. They wanted to pursue. They tell our people that this is what we want from India, and India is not going to go down. India is strong. So I think that is where the reluctance with the two leaders is. Let's see how the G20 and the SCO, how does it unfold. But I do feel it'll be difficult for the two leaders to have the same chemistry, the same sort of a relationship what they had pre 2020, unless of course China vacates and goes back to a status quo ante, which is not demanding, we can get back to normal relationship. But we cannot exclude the LAC from India-China relationship at all. It is part and parcel of a relationship, the comprehensive India-China relationship. You cannot say, okay, we will live together on weekends and not on weekdays, something like that. Right? We will diverse on certain issues and we will remain married on certain issues. No, it is a relationship which is either it lasts or it doesn't last, and it has to be acceptable to both. And India, in no way, can accept Chinese footprints along the LAC, Chinese aggressiveness, its aggressive behavior along the LAC.
That indeed, of course. If you read the rhetoric coming out of China today, so it talks about the factor that India is getting too close to the West. For some reason, of course, the detractors within India call Quad an eyewash. Funnily speaking, the Chinese don't think so. We meet many countries, we meet do a whole lot of things. But every time there's a Quad interaction, the Chinese get very nervous. And we saw that again during the Raisina dialogues recently when the Quad leaders were here and this and that. And we will see it again in, I think, June or July when there's another round of the Quad leaders in-person meeting. And these are the heads of states. What is it with China, say, with regards to its demand with India, if I may? I'm sure it understands that India won't be a subservient power to China. What else does it demand?
Yeah, I think China understands that there's a balancing power. You may call it whatever you may call it, but India is the balancing power. When the world power, emerging world order shifts from the west to the east, it is India which is the balancing power. And China cannot take on everyone at the same time. It cannot take on India. It cannot take on US and Taiwan. It cannot take on Europe also for that matter, in South Central, Australia, Japan. So the Quad is a good pressure point on China. Let me put it that way. And China which has pushed India to be actively involved in many things in the multilateral systems. Right? We are not given a strategic autonomy by no way. Quad is Quad, and Quad is growing, but Quad does not still have a very viable security content in it, right? Despite the naval exercise we're doing. The Indo-Pacific is the future actually. The power lies in the center of gravity in the Indo-Pacific, and China should rightly remain concerned. I see no reason why we should not put pressure on China, because China has not been has exploited its powers, both economic, military, and technology powers, and it has tried to do too much in too little a time. There was a time when it said, hide your strength. He was a man in a hurry. He's sprinting for the last 10 years now. He wants to do everything during his tenure. So that is Xi Jinping. And nations don't do that. You can't compress 100 years of history and then do it in 10 years and say, look, I am there. Yes, China is there. China is economic part, China is technology part, China is a political part. There's no doubt about it. But it is still not the power which Xi Jinping thinks they are. Yeah, China is sort of I would say they think that they become too big. It is not so. They have a lot of inherent weaknesses right now. The infirmities within the system, the infirmities within China. China economically also is suspect now, right? They have overextended themselves in terms of investments outside. So there are problems within China. Poverty is setting in. If you look at what is coming out of China, is that the real estate sector is in a bad shape. There are ghost towns and ghost cities, right? So China has to look inward also. So I feel that China has to do something more and try to, as they say, win friends and not create enemies. Both are equally important. China create too many enemies actually. So China has become the landmark. If something happens in China, internally everyone's very happy that China is getting it back. Okay. Put it bluntly in a layman's language, China has to win friends, and China cannot be taking the world on its own terms. That is the sharp power. Either with you or against me, it is not going to serve its purpose. If you look at China, the 5 flashpoints of conflict have got a China connect, right? Taiwan, Korea, South China Sea, East Sea, and I say East Sea, not East China Sea, okay, East Sea, and India-China boundary. And here we talk of a two-front war, and everyone's very concerned about two-front war. But look at China, multiple fronts. Okay. So it's not going to be so easy. So that is why China has to be concerned. And India, at the cost of reputation, let me say, India has to strengthen its 3D strategy to counter China's aggressive behavior, data China's aggressive behavior. That being, defend the line of actual control, dominate the ocean and the seas and the sea lines of communication, and deft diplomacy to bind to balance with nations where we have congruence and convergence of interests. Okay, defend the LAC, dominate the oceans, and deft diplomacy. And that's exactly what we are doing. If you translate that, you see what we are doing, the actions is exactly what we are doing. So if China today, is not very happy with India for going to Quad, it's China's problem. They pushed us into it. They wanted to keep us out of the American fold, and they're pushing us towards America. We are not being pushed. Sorry, but they are doing their best to push us. Because that's what China doesn't understand India. China has to start understanding India and Indians, our democratic system, how we function. Right. So I think we are doing pretty well.
You mentioned something which is given me a little bit of a thought with regards to China pushing India into whatever it's doing today and stuff like that. So, which is the reality of the situation. But if you ask the Chinese, they will say that you are pushing us into this by your association with the West. The threat factor that the Chinese would obviously feel would be our association with the US and the Western powers and stuff like that. And I'm sure they're also feeling a little nervous with the NATO-India summits happening pretty often. What would you say to the Chinese for that, sir?
No, China is responsible for that. I think Chinese understand that the bull diplomacy which they've been practicing as part of their, as adjunct to the 3 warfare strategy, is actually not working out too well. And they're practicing bull diplomacy. There's no doubt about it. And see, we have to protect and project our national interests. Right? If I have to face up to China, I have to make sure, and not only now, everywhere, the world over, every time any nation has conflicts or near conflict situations, the support of the world is very important. If you look at 71 war, Indira Gandhi had gone and had a great treaty with the Soviet Union to keep the American Chinese out. Otherwise, the Pakistan soldiers are going to believe that if India starts a war, then if there's a war with India rather, then we'll have yellow army coming from the north and the white army coming from the seas. Okay. So diplomacy has to play its role. Diplomacy is a very important essential national power. It's a tool of CNP. So China has actually pushed us. We are strategically autonomous. There's no doubt about it. But we are the US and India are the 2 greatest democracies, the oldest democracy and largest democracy. So their ideological commonalities, the values are similar. And China has not helped its cause by pushing us there. If you look at India-China trade was growing, our youth, which is about 65%, had actually, had pushed 62 back into the background. Okay. 62 was for people like me, old people who were little boys at 62. We remember China's backstabbing, as they call it, Hindi Chini bye bye, and the backstabbing of China. But the younger generation didn't bother about it. What China has actually done is now push those 60 millions Indians in the young bracket as anti-China. Okay. What they did in Galwan was not small. It was very small action, but then look at the implications. The Indians have become anti-China. That, I'm sure the Chinese didn't want that. So what has happened? They have pushed us. They pushed us to port. They pushed us to China, to US. We would have gone there in any case. We had 4 foundation agreements we signed with them. The limo has been signed. We didn't sign it for so many years. So China will understand that.
That's where the trouble is, I guess, because the Chinese don't seem to be
Yes.
in the mood of understanding anything at the moment. So you mentioned Xi Jinping's visit, and that to me is very interesting because here is a man who likes to be in a strong point, and we saw that especially during the Samarkand SEO summit. I mean, there were rumors that he won't come, but then I guess when the Indian Prime Minister accepted the offer, he had to come there, and his presence was, for the lack of a better word, weak and unseen and very impersonal. Uh, how do you think he'd like to project himself when he comes here, knowing the factor very well that, I mean, more than 100 million people are going to be wanting his neck, for the lack of a better word.
No, I think we as a nation are very big-hearted. We are responsible, like I said, responsible nation. We have the president of G20, and when he comes, he's welcome. We know Atithi Devo Bhavo. He's a visitor to India. We welcome him with open arms, and we welcome him like all others. At the height of everything, after Kargil, we welcomed Musharraf to Agra. Look at historically. After 1999, after that, we welcomed Musharraf to Agra. We welcomed at the height of everything during 87. Ziaul Haq visited Ajmer. He came for a cricket match. So India is India. That's what India is all about. He's most welcome. And why not? That's why we are a responsible nation. We're not we couldn't care less. If he's welcome, he should come. We have to move forward. India and China have to move forward together. But at equitable terms. The issue is that equitable terms. He has to address our concerns, our interests. He cannot just say stamp it over our interests, our concerns. There are concerns. There are our interests. If he can't factor that in, then it's okay. We are strong enough. We look after interests. It's not a pushover. There's no question. No, we're not a pushover anymore. In a way, I'm very happy that the PL is deployed all over the LAC. It was raised cost. नहीं तो पहले हम ही बैठ रहे थे वहां पर सीधा. Vinod Bhatia walked a lot of LAC. Why should I walk? We hardly saw any PLA helicopters. We hardly saw any PLA soldiers. They came. They always came. Basically, a very steep sort of a. You could predict if you went and analyzed the last 5 years of the patrolling pattern, you knew where will they come, when will they come. Okay, they came and they should come to the LAC. We should treat them. We should treat them well. We should share, break bread together. It doesn't matter at 5,000 meters when you're sitting out there, someone comes and you say hello to him. He shares bread with you. Right? So that's okay. But then you don't do this, what they done. We maintained 4.5 decades of peace and technology along the LAC. And suddenly you come and do say, no, that's not wrong. And now you're stuck in a situation. For China, face is very important. Right? No, they have to have a face-saving exit to get back. So what is a face-saving exit? Let's see how it works out.
That's the whole thing, sir. How does he get to that face-saving point when he has to face Mr. Modi? And which brings me to another thing, sir, because the situation in Taiwan today seems to be deteriorating, and it's not something that uh, the Chinese would want at this moment. Let me just say this, and their responses seem very reluctant and shallow. And I mean, the last time their response was aggressive. This time their response has been reluctant and shallow. And the last time there were 75 aircraft that was airliners that were delayed. This time it was three. Uh, they didn't fire as much. Their responses, of course, the media hype was different. But when you look at it on ground, and I spoke to someone in Taiwan, he says this time it's looked at being very, very meek. Now, two questions coming out of that. One, are they trying to normalize these aggressive actions within the Taiwan Strait so that when they do actually take any action, it's an easy push? And two, what is their thought of now being faced with India on this side and a fear that in case they do go into Taiwan, India might walk into their alleged territory?
See, Taiwan is a flashpoint, right? If you look at China's core national interests, what did it say? One China policy. That's the core national interests. So for them, Taiwan, I think, is very important. It's the three T's: Taiwan, Tibet, and Turkmenistan, or East Turkmenistan, as you call it. Right? So they cannot be seen to be not having a one China. That's the core national. The first core national interest is, of course, one China policy. If that is the core national interest, I do feel that China's aggressiveness along the Taiwan straits has been growing over the years. It's not that, but unfortunately, there is interdependence between Taiwan and China. Look at the Taiwanese working across. Look at the economic needs. Look at their needs for semiconductors, there's technology. Right. So it is interdependence which is stopping China from taking extreme action. But that does not mean that China will accept a Taiwan which is not part of China. And it has been there for now 75 years. So these are very difficult times. To predict tomorrow is very, very difficult. There's no Panditji who's going to predict tomorrow. Right? Anything can change. So we as India should be prepared for all contingencies. We should ensure peace through preparedness. I'm not saying you jump in if something goes wrong in Taiwan, goes out tomorrow, you jump in. No, don't jump in, please. Be prepared for all contingencies. Look after your interests, not balance of power, balance of interests. Today, everyone would like India to fight China or China to fight India. It serves the purpose. But India can't another Ukraine, and we are not. We're not going to be. So to say that if Taiwan something happens, China, India should walk in. I think we can resolve the boundary LAC without walking in. We got many other ways and means, and the fact that we are talking and the fact that we have resolved it in more than a couple of places, the friction points at our terms is an indicator that we can do it. Sumdrongchu 1986 took 7 years to resolve. So I see nothing very, being a military man, why should do anything in a hurry? It's a game of patience. And China can play the game of patience, so can we. We should play the game of patience. We should not get too concerned about it. That's exactly what he wants. He wants a concerned India. He wants concerned Indians. That's why the political warfare. Right? He wants us to worry about it. Why should I worry about it? I'm standing firm. I'm resolute. I've got a resolute response. I should believe in ourselves. Invest in infrastructure, invest in the armed forces, invest in the state government, invest in the, we got that vibrant village project going. Invest in that. We got a population which is totally for the nation. The population along the LAC is totally nationalistic. We won't survive in those places without the locals. They help us in our survival, our sustenance. They are the ones who carry all the loads with us. We live and we die together there. We don't understand that. People sitting there don't understand the army is there. No, it's not the army. It's the people. And people and the army are together. You don't see any conflict or rift between the people and the army in the border areas. We are one. And that's our strength. That is what China does not have. China doesn't have that strength. China's got weak troops. China's got local vegetables. China's forced people to come and occupy villages which they're not happy with. They created infrastructure, they created villages, but it is not villages that matter. It is the villagers that matter. In our case, also, there has been people moving out of the villages, but now we're making it attractive for them to come back. I don't know the exact, I don't recollect the exact figure. It's a few thousand crores, which is given for the Vibrant Village project. We got to build on that. So that is what I'm trying to say. Let's give our patience. We should not say nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. Well, things are happening. We have strategically rebalanced ourselves. We are looking Chinawards. What else do you want?
Absolutely wonderful. Bang on answers. And my last question to you with regards is, you mentioned something very interesting, that there are certain powers in the world that would want India to confront China more than anything else. Which brings me to, again, and I'm going to indulge you in this one, two questions. One is, why would that be? Is this that they want us to fight their wars? And second thing, which you mentioned here, which I find to be the most important thing, which is the punchline, where you say that they want us to be flustered about what's happening between the two countries. They want us to be underconfident about the relationship between India and China. They want us to be scared of the so-called 10-foot tall Chinese soldier. Uh, there are two interesting things here which actually tell you that from both the sides, it is the same message to India. The Chinese want us to believe that concentration, boss, you're going to be in challenge, and the West is telling us, not telling us, but inching us towards a war with China. Now, this is very contradictory in itself, both the things, but they are based on one simple thing: our relationship on China. What would you want to say to, help us understand this game a bit further, sir?
Yeah, I think the best way to sort China is to India, because no one gets involved directly. So that is why you find a lot of so-called strategic thinkers and think tanks emanating out of Washington and others. They keep telling us, how strong India is. The Air Force got a 3D advantage. The Army's got this advantage. Army got that. I know our armed forces very well. We know our armed forces well. We know our advantages. We know what our strengths are, what our opportunities are, what our threats are. But why should anyone egg us on? I don't understand that. We haven't taken the bait for long. And I don't think we're going to take that bait. They are two nuclear armed nations. There's a deterrence. Right? There's a deterrence, not a nuclear, there are multi-domain deterrence. The army is not a pushover, the armed forces is not a pushover. The China's strategic vulnerabilities are in the oceans, and we are aware of that. So it is not that everything is not Pingmongso, or everything is not Dipsang or Chumar or Yangtze. Everything is not that. There's an overall picture. Everything interconnected. Something happens there, you got the oceans, you got the seas. Look at China's trade, China's oil, China's energy needs. So we have the capability to make sure that there are costs to it. China understands that. And no one wants to tell us, no one should tell us that you go and fight with China, we are with you. If you are with us, you are there for your own reasons. How much support is given to anyone to us? We don't understand that. We have to be self-reliant. Atmanirbhar India, Atmanirbhar Bharat is the key. And that is what we are heading for. Atmanirbharta in everything. Strategic autonomy in everything. India first in everything. Right? Indian national interests take priority over everything else. It's okay to sit on idle. If we buy oil from Russia, people have got problems. Why should they have problems? Today, the the NATO countries are banning trade in agriculture with Ukraine, and they tell us, no, you should not do this. Why should I not do it? Why are you doing it through third parties? Okay. So today we have reached a stage where India is assertive in protecting and projecting national interests. India is a big player. We are a global leader. We are a regional power, and we are a responsible nation. And people understand that. So we should not let anything weaken that. We have to look after the well-being of 1.4 billion Indians. That is what it is. And that well-being can only come through long-term peace, stability, and economic development. You cannot have economic development without peace and stability. And so we got our problems along the borders. There's no doubt about it. We have a neighbor on the west, we have a neighbor on the north. Adversarial relations are there. Inimical powers are there. But we are a great nation. We survived. No one thought in 1947 that we would survive for 75 days. They all thought we'll break into 530 odd, princely states and things like that. Today, 75 years, no one talks about breaking into. They dare not. So that is where I will, pitch it. Aadi, it's been interesting. We have to be India first. We have to look after people. We have to look after national interests. And our national interests are best served through peace, stability, and economic development.
Amazing. So I must say it's so reassuring talking to you because you've kind of broken down the situation, telling us the vulnerability on the other side as well. One of the biggest things that we see in analysts, and I'm going to say that very respectfully, within India is that we only tell the story of China, not the story of India. And this particular channel, I've been trying to put across the story of India, that it's not as bad as it has been put out to be. And I'd like to thank you, sir. This has been a wonderful talk. I look forward to actually having more and more with you. We'll not leave that long a gap between our next interaction. Of course, India and China is going to be hot on the menu this year of 2023. Let's hope for some wonderful conversations with you in this year, sir. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Always enjoyed the conversation. Absolutely. You, I think, let me be very honest, you bring out the best in me. Thank you so very much. And Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.